Okay, class, welcome to fun video number 2. This week is filled with 4 fun videos, so you will have a new one each night, and this is number 2. So as you can tell by the title, we are covering diction today. I showed you a list on the Sweet 16 plus 1 that you watched over the weekend, and those, we had the diction and the syntax listed there. We've already covered some syntax. Today we're going to cover some diction. Okay, so first of all, the first two you know, or at least I hope you know. Remembering similes, metaphors, dealing with comparisons, these should be second nature to you. The main difference between the two, remembering, is that simile uses the words like or as when dealing with the comparison, and a metaphor does not. It says that something is something else. So keeping that in mind when you're telling the difference between those two is important. A simile is also usually short and quick and to the point, whereas a metaphor can be extended and carry out as an example throughout an entire piece of literature or story or even paragraph aspects. Okay, so the next one, personification. So we've talked a little bit about this idea of personification and it being giving human characteristics to something else. Now, I'm going to clarify this a little bit and add a little bit more to this. So specifically, personification is giving human characteristics to inanimate objects. These are objects that don't move. So like here, you see my dartboard back there? If I were to give that a human characteristic, I could say that it threw something, or that it cried when we hit it, or something along those lines. That's an inanimate object. It's something that doesn't move. Now, but what we do see a lot, especially in cartoons, is this idea of what we would call anthropomorphism. Anthropomorphism is a form of personification, but it's specifically dealing with animals. So in a movie, when you see specifically a cartoon movie or cartoon itself, animated style, you see an animal talk, that is an anthropomorphism. Okay, when you see an animal do something that humans would do, but we don't see animals do, that is an anthropomorphism. So the idea is like if someone were to say, I saw the dog sit up and laugh at me. The laughing doesn't normally happen. It's not something that you see a dog do. It's a human characteristic. So keeping that in mind between these two differences. So personification is inanimate objects. Anthropomorphism is specifically with animals. Both on the idea of human characteristics. Okay, number 4. Alliteration. So if we look here at this idea of alliteration, let me grab my purple pen. We have this idea of repeated sounds at the beginning of words. So here if we read this, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Now this is alliteration because it's repeating the P sound. Anytime you have little rhymes like this, the author chose those words on purpose. They don't fit a set pattern, so they don't fit into the syntax aspect because the author can decide how many times they want to do it, or if they want to put words in between, or even include the P's here in the middle of another word. Same thing with Piper as well. Another famous one is with S's about Sweet Susie Sally selling seashells at the seashore. So we have several examples along this. Most of the time you will not see authors, especially in pieces that we're going to be reading, being nonfiction, you will not see full rhymes like this, but you will see them in shorter sets, as in 3 or 4 words over a line. Okay, so that's alliteration. Allusion. Now, an allusion, there are 3 main types. An allusion is a reference to something outside of the literature. So not only is it outside of the literature, but it's there to help you bring in context. So we have 3 main styles. So the idea here is that when an author writes something and they want to give you an example, it's so that you can see that aspect. So as an example, a biblical one. So we'll start with the 3 main types. First of all is a biblical allusion. If you were to say she walked down the aisle and the people parted like the Red Sea, you have a biblical allusion. They're making you imagine that this woman is walking down the aisle and people are stepping to the side like Moses when he walked through the Red Sea and it moved to the side. So that biblical allusion there. We get these a lot with the Garden of Eden, with Adam and Eve, with the Tree of Knowledge, with Noah's Ark. Biblical allusions are very, very popular. Okay, the second set is Shakespearean allusions. Now, Shakespeare's language is awesome. You already know that I love Shakespeare, but keeping in mind he has so many different quotes, so many different references, that when people say things in reference to his plays, things like speeches, famous speeches, things about Romeo and Juliet or star-crossed lovers, those are allusions to Shakespearean plays. Okay, and the last one is mythological. So we have biblical, we have Shakespearean, and we have mythological. Mythological allusions deal with the Greek gods specifically. Yes, we have some Roman, yes, we have some Norse gods, but the majority of them deal with the Roman gods themselves. So if we're alluding to the idea of Hercules and someone being strong and buff like Hercules, if we're alluding to someone going on a long journey and a quest like Odysseus did, those all refer in there and giving us this idea of what these people are like. So it gives us that depth in there. Okay, another one that I like from mythology is this idea it's hot as Hades in here, and Hades is the god of the underworld, and the underworld is supposedly really hot, so it fits in there with that idea. Okay, number 6, rhetorical questions. I don't think I need to say any more. Okay, the fun new one. This one, out of all of the ones we have here, is probably the one you've never heard of. Or if you have, it's something that it's a different concept. So this is called Synecdoche. If you notice, looking in your textbook, in the definitions at the back of chapter 2, I think starting on page 78, you will notice there is a spelling mistake in the book. The book left out the C, so make sure when you write this in your notes that you include the C. If you want to go fix the spelling in the book, that's great. Okay, so a synecdoche is a part that represents a whole. So it's a piece of a whole. So when we go back to when we're talking about the titles, whether or not we underline or we do quote marks, when we're talking about pies and the piece of the pie, the same thing with the synecdoche here. So it's part representing a whole. Now, looking at this sample, when I say something like, let me give you a hand, I'm not literally going to cut off my hand and give it to you. In fact, I'm saying, here, I'm going to help you. And instead of, yes, it's my hands that are probably going to help you, but it's not just my hand. I'm not cutting it off at the wrist and giving it to you for help. In fact, I'm saying that I am going to give you a hand. I'm saying that I'm going to help you. Okay, that is one of the more popular references. Now, this is a short video tonight. I do have a couple of things that you need to pay attention, though, making sure that you know these. Tomorrow, when you come into class, there might be a little surprise for you. So keep paying attention with that. I highly suggest looking up some other examples of synecdoche. And make sure you know the 3 allusions, and maybe another example of alliteration from here besides the 2 that I gave you. Okay, have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.